So am I doing this? So you're just staring at me. You're just waiting for me to say something.
Yep.
Real quick, a riddle. I am the library that you can't see. Ask me anything. I'll fetch it for free. What am I? Stay tuned to find out. And welcome to episode 7 of The Bucket.
Nice.
Simon doesn't know how to dance.
He just got finished eating his sandwich, so he's in a little bit of a food coma.
You got to avoid cramps 30 minutes, right?
I have to be really careful how much exercise I do right after eating because that could get messy.
That's what the doctor said, right?
Among other things.
So Shane, thank you for the riddle. How was your week, buddy?
Great question. My week has been pretty good. Actually, I don't have a ton to report on, which is, it's kind of nice, actually. I've been working my butt off and hitting my hours and diving deep into a lot of different projects and working with filament a lot more intimately and trying to solve some pretty interesting issues with filament. And it's all been fun. I did... it must have been Monday, I think. I got sick of my office had been in disarray. And I just got sick of it being the way that it was. And my intention initially was, so I've got this like big L-shaped wooden desk that it's like a $2,000 desk that I got for $50 brand new. Yeah. Thanks. When I first moved to Charlotte, I saw it on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, one of those. And some guy in a shady part of town had it in a storage unit in the box. And
that's not sketchy at all.
No, I mean, I didn't question legalities. I was just like 50 cash. And he's like, please. And I took it home. I put it together and I've had it for 7 or 8 years now. And it's great. But I feel like in some ways it's too cumbersome. I don't know. I just feel like I want to be more lightweight. I have another desk. It's like a, the standing desk. This has a standing component to it that I can raise and lower, but I have another desk, the standing desk that I think would just like be better in my life. But after like trying like 6 or 7 different ways to position things, I decided this is actually probably pretty good. So I just went for it. I stayed up till like 2:00 in the morning, one of those nights, and just refactored my brain, my office, and my life a bit. And it's been good, actually.
Doesn't it feel good when you do that?
It does.
You know, it's annoying to do, but once you've done it, it just feels so much better.
Yeah, it had been weeks that I was living in this chaos mode. And so you guys can see, obviously, I'm in a different environment than all the other videos have been.
Yeah.
And
our audio-only listeners can't, but for those
they
of
can
them
in their
on
minds.
YouTube,
just imagine when we paint this picture for you guys. Before you could really just see my face, now you can just see my face and a little bit more behind me. So,
and you're wearing a bucket t-shirt,
and I'm wearing a bucket t-shirt. Yeah,
you got some great apparel on.
My girlfriend has a printing company, and she's experimenting different types of prints and different. And I'm learning about all this stuff: sublimation versus adhesive vinyl versus permanent vinyl versus DTF or DTG, and all these cool things that go into printing. So big shout out to Victoria. Thank you for the shirt. Eventually maybe we sell these, or actually what she really likes to focus on is custom stuff. So you can see it if you're really interested in some custom work. She can print basically anything on anything. If not, then she'll let you know. But
how does that work? Is it literally like a printer, like a inkjet printer for t-shirts?
So let's go into
It's a
this.
dot
She
matrix.
lists
Let's do it.
every one of these too. So if I get something
I'm
wrong,
curious.
she's gonna call me out. So,
I've done screen printing before with t-shirts, right? Where you're using like
Yep.
an actual mesh screen and you pull the ink over, but I've never seen, anything that's intricate like that, lots of colors.
I'm gonna try my best here. So this is sublimation. Sublimation, it will like you print it onto like a film, I think. Yeah. And
Okay.
you heat
Good
it
start.
onto the shirt. So if you think of, and this is what she explained to me, and it makes sense. So if you think of like most inkjet or whatever printers, laserjet, and I don't know the difference actually. I'm not a printer guy. Sorry for all you printer people. But there's like CMYK, right? There's the magenta, yellow, black, and cyan.
Cyan, yeah. Yeah.
There's no white. So the
Right.
problem is that you can use an inkjet printer and print onto a sublimation paper in reverse. Place that is on a sublimation paper. Place it onto a shirt, and then you heat it, and it like bonds to the material itself. But because of the way that the ink is, and because of the lack of white, it has to be white shirts work best. You can do it on other colors, but they get faded.
Right.
And it has to be like 60% polyester for sublimation. So to go into anything else, there's vinyl. You can do vinyl, and she's got a vinyl cutter. And I've only ever seen her do, she did a truck decal. She did like a Department of Transportation number and like the name of the company. And there's like a transfer sheet that you have to put on the back of this thing to like press it on, and then you peel it off. And it was pretty elaborate. It's different for shirts, and I haven't really seen that process. I do have a couple vinyl shirts, and actually next week I'll be wearing the bucket vinyl. She did a really cool vinyl for the bucket. That can go on to any fabric, I believe, any color, because you're actually cutting out this material that then gets pressed onto the article of clothing.
Right.
And they make all sorts of like, there's puff vinyl that when you heat it up, it kind of raises up a little bit. It's more embossed. There's glitter vinyl. There's all sorts of cool kinds of vinyl. What's great about that is that it can go onto like anything. It's super versatile. But you kind of only get like one color, right? Which is fine for some things, but you can't do something like this with vinyl, right? And now she's trying to get creative and do sublimation onto a piece of vinyl, white vinyl, and then press that. So she's actually experimenting with this, and we're going to see how that turns out probably this week. Her goal is to save up for a DTF printer, direct to film. So they have these printers. It's like $3,000 for this printer, but it prints to a film, like kind of like sublimation paper, I guess. But it does white also. So you can say you have a really awesome design for something, and you don't know what size shirts are going to be coming in and what color shirts people are going to be ordering, but you know you're going to do like 100 of these things. You can print off that film, cut them all out, and then press them onto whatever you want to whenever you're ready to, which is kind of nice. And that can work with just cotton. That can work with anything. That doesn't need to be just the polyester. So
Cool.
I'm learning these things, and that's probably about the extent of my knowledge. She will definitely correct me if I'm wrong. You'll hear about it next week, I'm sure. But and
well, we
I'm
love
sure
a fact oopsie on the bucket.
Another fact, probably, but that's admitting ahead of time. So
that's cool.
Other than that, the office work, I saw something really cool. I don't know if we should talk about it now or maybe later, but there's a really, really, really cool thing that I was thinking about this last night. I'm like, I don't have a lot to bring this week, but I had this one thing. And if I could just talk about this one thing, it'll blow everything else away. There's a website, and I'm a little hesitant to even say the URL, because it's so cool, and I think everyone's going to rush to hit it up. They're going to leave the podcast, and they're going to like our jobs as developers are going to be nearly obsolete with this. Yeah. So No, Simon. I wish I could share my screen. I
Skeptical
wish I could share.
eyes.
Can I share
Skeptical.
my screen? I probably could share my screen actually. All right. So it's AI. It starts with a prompt. It connects to your GitHub account so that, well, you just say, I want to fill in the blanks, whatever you want to do to build an app, and it builds the app. Caveat, it only works with React or Vue or Nuxt. So it's only
I
like a
saw
front
this.
end node sort of technology. But you can get a lot accomplished with that. Even if you create some sort of app that you drop into a Laravel app or whatever. So, for example, a couple days ago, I mentioned before my girlfriend's Russian. She had this, and she does a lot with the print stuff. And she found some app online on the App Store. She paid like $5 or $6 for it, where she could trace each letter on her phone, and then when it's done, download an OTF, install it into her phone. Now she has this custom font it's handwritten font, and she's like, "That's really cool, but it'd be cool if there was one for Russian, the Russian letters." So in literally like 10 or 15 minutes, I told it to do this. It did everything, and then I said, "Well, make it dark mode, make it styled with Tailwind." Make it like all these like little adjustments, and then like downloading the OTF file, it wasn't showing up exactly right, so I was like, you have to map these characters to my keyboard. I'm using a QWERTY US keyboard, but I set my settings to Russian on Mac, and it did everything. It did everything in like 15 or 20 minutes, and I did it right in front of her too. It was like, this is cool. This is cool. That's not the only app I've made though. So I have been like, I wanted to find like a very quick, easy way to, like, if I'm working on a task, just click a button and start recording my time. And that's kind of the concept. I wanted a to-do list where I could just click a little stopwatch icon or something, and it just starts storing my time for that. And if I switch to something else, I can switch to something else or whatever. That took 2 seconds. One prompt, I had that. I went more and more. I got more and more elaborate with this. I said, all right, well, I want each of these to-do items to belong to a project. And like initially it was like, you can just create these to-do items not related to a project. So I was like, no, I want them all associated with a project. So now I've got this whole thing, and it's this close. It's already actually deployed. I'm getting a domain. I've got like a subdomain of one of my generic domains running it now. And it's like, it goes so deep. Actually, let me just pull it up just to remind myself of a couple of these features. It's called Chronos, track time with precision. So you can mark each item complete. You can, oh, right, I forgot the whole cool part of it. So you can
best sales pitch ever.
Yeah, right. So if I start and stop a time for a to-do item, so it'll say, all right, you spent 5 minutes 49 seconds on this. If I start it again, it's going to increase the counter, but it's also keeping track of the date and time that I did each one of these entries. I can go back in and edit each one of those entries, and then I can just say view the time log, and it will show me every single to-do item, the start and stop times, the total duration for each time, the total duration for the entire time, the total duration for the entire project, and then I can download it as a PDF. Took me about an hour and a half to do this whole app. I didn't write a single line of code. Not a single line of code. And I'm like, make it a really nice, I want like a little cool logo for it. And instead of a logo, it gave me this all SVG, an actual JavaScript clock that shows the real time. And I was like, well, make it work for each individual user's time zone. If you can detect the time zone, then show it in their time zone and display that. And so it's like got seconds, it's got hours, it's got minutes, and dude, it's freaking awesome. It's so cool.
You're scaring
so
me,
cool.
Shane. You're scaring me.
Dude, I'm excited. I'm like, actually, and I didn't plug this in yet, but I was like, I'd love to charge $5 a year for this. Can we hook this up to Stripe? Sure. Here you go.
Shut
no
up.
sweat. No sweat. Now there's a little issue because you have to have a server, they call it a server. There's like some server.js file that has to run on a different port to receive webhooks from Stripe. And they're like, and it said we need to create a way to interface with the Stripe webhooks. Do you want me to do that for you, or do you want to build your own backend somewhere else? How do you want to do that? So a couple little things with that I haven't figured out yet. And actually, it wasn't really working enough for me, and I wanted to actually use this during the day. So I just like, can you delete all of the just get rid of the Stripe implementation for now. It initially wrote this all in React, and that was fine. But I was like, can you rewrite this in Vue, please? It took it a minute or two, but it rewrote everything in Vue. It left all the TypeScript TSX files for React. And that was fine, but it started to like clutter things up. I'm like, can you delete all the React stuff, please? And then I'm very nice with AI. I'm not like, do it. I'm your master, you know. Some people are like that. I've noticed. But
please.
Yeah. So I mean, I like so badly want to share this. Once I have by next week, I will have a URL, and actually probably by the time we publish this, I'll probably have a URL that I can share. So it might be even in the document, the notes for the episode. So
okay, couple questions just to clarify.
Okay,
so this is mostly front end implementations.
It'll do, so it's Node, so there's some back end stuff.
Okay, so
right?
It'll do, is that like using React Server components or the Nuxt API stuff, or is it like, how is it doing that?
I didn't do anything with Nuxt, and I don't like React because I don't like React, so I don't really do much with React. I just like, honestly, like at the end of the day, I'm like, just build this thing. I show him my dad, and he's like, what is this? Build it in. And I'm like, I don't even know. Who cares, right? Like, it works. Look at this. I didn't even care, right? Yeah, so there's some Node.js something or other server. It also hooks up to Netlify, so you can say deploy. Oh, by the way, it shows you all the code, and it gives you a download button. You just download the zip, and you do npm install, npm run start, or whatever the command. It tells you what to do. You get all the code. You can also just push it right to a repo. And you can also just deploy it, and it gives you some weird fluffy kitty.netlify.app or something. Like
so
weird.
Is there a database? Or is it not that?
So good question. Do you want a database? Because you can, it's all front end, right? So it's all like, there's no database on like a traditional server. There's no session, right? There's no users. If you want any kind of user ability, you could hook it up to, you can say, I want to use this OAuth package, or I have a MySQL database someplace, or whatever kind of, and here's the connection strings for it. I want you to hit that. And there's a MySQL 2 JS package that it can use to hit and get data. I don't know how secure that is. Or there's probably some limitations there. I didn't play with it yet. Not that part. But my coming up to like, so I wanted to get this thing to a place, this Chronos track time with precision app. I want to get it to where like, well, if I refresh the page, I think some things are stored in like local storage, but I would love to share my week with somebody else. I would like to hook this up to Stripe. I would like to log out, log back in, see previous weeks, and be able to download other times. And like, I want this to be in Laravel.
Yeah.
Nothing like this that I've seen yet exists in Laravel, where you can just spin up a Laravel app, because there's PHP limitations, and you need a better, more beefier server to run this stuff. But I'm like, I could just, once I get this done, right, I can just drop this into a Laravel app. Mm-hmm. I also can say, hey, I've got an API endpoint for all of these things. So it can like, I can build the Laravel app and have it hit that while I'm developing this in the browser, right? And then when I'm done with it, download the zip file, plug it into Laravel, and I'm done. It's already wired up to hit my own backend. Yeah. So.
Okay, spill the beans. What is this? We're 20 minutes in.
He doesn't want to give it
away.
away.
The listeners are
here.
He
doesn't want to give it away. Look at him. He's straining.
Oh. This reminds me a lot of like v0.net.
It's bolt.new. bolt.new. Yep.
All right. And that's all for this episode. Catch
there
you guys later.
Guys. Yep. It is free for a while. I got like the whole Russian trace the thing app that was all done basically for free, and then it got to a point it's like you ran out of tokens or something because it's using AI. So I'm like, all right, let's see what I can do for their cheapest plan, which is $20 a month. And so far, I mean, I worked a couple hours over the last few days on this Cronus app and haven't hit any more limitations. So um,
All
pretty
right.
damn cool. Pretty
We'll have
damn
to
cool.
check it out.
Yeah.
We'll have to check it out. Have you guys seen V0 dot? Is it V0.net or
Yeah.
whatever from Vercel before this discussion?
I'm looking up now.
Yeah, I
I'm
did
not.
see that, but and this does look very, very similar. I think like you get to this level of these kind of tools being able to produce code and have enough what's the like context and parameters that it's going to understand like the whole code base of something like React. It's going to be reasonably good at doing this kind of stuff. I think, yeah, I'll say my eyes are not as like spectacle as they were, um, because I did see this and I was like, this does look cool. I didn't play around with it. Um, I will though now that you've talked about it, Shane, because it sounds like it could, especially for like a back end dev where you don't really want to do the front end stuff, and
Yeah.
maybe you want to use React or Vue, so then this would just let you get going with that. Like you kind of tell it, go and do this stuff for me whilst I go and build this other thing, and then a couple of days later you come back and it's finished. I mean, I'm guessing it doesn't even take that long, right? But it's yeah. The bit that got me was when you were saying that your girlfriend was trying to get this stuff done, and you were helping her prompt, and the fact that you've got like understanding in this space is really beneficial because you can tell it the right things to do. And I think this is the biggest challenge for me with this whole area of technology, and how it's going to kind of potentially democratize access to being able to do this stuff, is that you still have to have quite a bit of knowledge to get going, is my view. Like,
Sure.
yeah, a person who doesn't have that knowledge can do stuff. I'm not saying that's not possible, but you're going to get further faster if you already know kind of what you're talking about and what it needs to know to be able to move forward. So I don't think we're done for yet.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Um, I agree. I got an email. I don't remember what it was or who it was from, like yesterday, I think, and it was like layoffs are the new norm. And that blurb entered my mind. I didn't really look into it. It was just that thought, and I was like, I wonder how many people are laid off where they could replace AI. 100 people on a team, we can get rid of 80 people and let the rest use. You'd only because like this, I didn't need any React or Vue knowledge at all, right? I did not need to even know. Like I just kept saying stuff like the button is being when I click on this, the menu pops up as a modal, but it's underneath the items below it, right? Like each to do item was covering up this little drop down thing. I didn't touch any code. I just was telling
Yeah.
it the UI thing. So I wonder like how many people are being laid off because of UI. I don't think we're done, but I think that we do need to, if we want to be in those 20 that remain, we do need to know how to work a lot faster, more efficiently, and lean on the tools like this, or things similar to this, to make us that much more efficient.
Yeah.
It is very cool to see it writing the code out.
It is. Are you playing with it now?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your app idea? What are you telling it to do?
The to-do list.
Yeah, I'll do something more better. Like make
Always a
something
to-do
else.
list.
Do something. I started a couple ideas. What was the other one? I was like, make a directory listing service with Stripe integration. Oh, this is how this first came up, actually, and I won't take up much time. But it initially was there's a not to go into too much detail, but essentially there's a project that I'm looking at using AI to like look at a bunch of different PDFs that exist on a server someplace, and I found this link where you could like see each subdirectory, click on each subdirectory, and find all of the PDFs eventually. And I was like, hey, here's a directory. Inside of this, there's all these subdirectories. I need to download each of those PDFs for future evaluation, right? And it's like, sure, no problem. This is what sold me on it. And it's like npm run start, and it just started going. And it's like, it did little emojis in the console, and it was like, downloading this PDF, done, downloading this PDF, done. Like all these, it was like, what the heck did I just stumble into? This is so cool. So it does web scraping, no problem, no problem. And if it's wrong, you just tell it what's wrong. If there's an error, you just copy and paste the error into it, and fixes itself.
Right.
It's very polite too.
Yeah. My quick take on all of this is, at least with the state that AI is currently in, it is a great tool to help you get to the first like 70%. And then the experienced person can kind of help carry it over that last 30%. But especially with a lot of the front end stuff, which traditionally has been a development space that moves pretty quickly. Lots of new things kind of come on and drop off all the time. So I could see stuff like this being really helpful to just, get a rough idea into something that you could start tweaking or bring up in meetings or prototype to a stakeholder. And it'd be really beneficial for that. But at the same time, I think it's still a while before like Miro or some other really sophisticated web apps are threatened by something like this, or anything that is like really mission critical.
Like a challenge.
That's like my other, I don't know, people talk about, Copilot or just any AI handling a decent amount of their code. And there's always part of me that's like, man, if that's responsible for a lot of money going in or out of the system, like, you really just want to try to describe something to these models and trust that, like, it did a plus instead of a minus, or something that simple, and it's not going to blow up in your face later. I'm not ready for that.
So that sounded like a challenge. So while you were saying this, I typed, make me a Miro clone. Let's see if by the end of this podcast, I've got a URL ready. And whatever it is at the end of the podcast, that's what we're going to publish. I won't touch it after that. So I'll keep chatting away with
I love it.
AI and
I love it. Or maybe like, Miro, Excalidraw. I don't know.
It said I'll create a simplified but production-ready Miro clone with a core whiteboard functionality, real-time collaboration features, and a clean UI.
Dude.
And it's done.
It's going to be done in like 30 seconds. I've been working with a package. I mean, I haven't been working with it that much, but one of the products that I'm working on is using it, and I kind of had a bit of investigation, but it's very cool. It's what is it actually called? I don't know. React Flow, I think it's called. And it's just one of those like canvas-like. It's actually not using a canvas, which is sort of weird, but it's a canvas-like environment where you can program like HTML nodes that should appear within the canvas space, and you can drag them around and it can draw lines between them and all sorts of things. And it's just like free and open. It's like one of the things that's been like the main UI like breakthrough in the last few years, with Figma and what's the other one that does that? Miro, like you said, and a few others, where you've just got this like endless canvas, and you can just plop stuff on, you can zoom in and out and all of that, and it's just there, like freely available. It's ridiculous. And I was like, and it's clearly really well looked after, and obviously they've got like paid for things as well and whatever, but it's like, it's mad how much like quality code is out there for free and can do some of these really quickly, some of these kinds of things really quickly. So it doesn't surprise me at all when you say, Stephen, these complex things, they might not get done. And then Shane goes, oh, well, actually, and then 5 minutes later, it's actually done. It's because there's just so much stuff out there that we don't know about, that's like enabling people to move faster. And until you're able to like tap into that stuff quickly, you might never know. I think that's a value that AI also brings in a way. It's like this compression algorithm for the whole web, if it's been trained on the whole web, where you can ask it for stuff, ideas, suggestions, or to write code, and it's going to throw up stuff that you didn't know about. So it's going to kind of seed your ideas, which is valuable in its own right. But I still think it's going to be a 10x whatever hypothetical improvement for existing developers who embrace it more so than it's going to be suddenly someone who's got absolutely no background in this is able to build really, really robust applications that can go to like enterprise scale and rigor. Certainly not for the next few years.
Yeah. Okay. So, Shane, I've got a little asterisk to stick on this challenge of ours. You got to the end of this. You know what? I'll even give you a few days. But the challenge is to get Bolt to put together this Miro clone in a way where we can, the three of us, can be collaborating on a whiteboard together. And we're really confident that a fourth party can't get access to our whiteboard. And to put some money where your mouth is, you have to put your social security number on our whiteboard.
But if I'm sharing it with you guys,
That's okay. We won't steal it.
Oh man, social security numbers is like it's a really weird. I was talking to somebody about that before. Like, why is that such a big deal for you? Like,
where was
in
that?
the UK and EU, we don't worry about that.
Were we talking about
just
that?
fully public?
Did you guys see the like kind of joke project that was making mountains on Twitter, where a guy was like, I made a repo that has every person's social security number in it.
Yeah.
And it's this big joke because it's literally just starts at 0000 and goes to 9999999.
Super smart.
And that's literally it. It's like, oh. And my favorite part is there was one dude that opened a pull request to remove a single number. And it's either like that dude was an idiot because he just told people what his social security number is, or it was a brilliant, like, extra level joke where, he's aware that it would be funny for him to
confirm that's yours. Like please tell us your date of birth, sir.
Yeah. So, all right, fine. Not a social security number. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of like something where it's like, again, for something like Miro, if you're putting sensitive information in it for your company, or you're an agency and you have client information that's in this whiteboard and stuff, and you're kind of trusting that Miro has code in place, practices, so that another account that isn't supposed to have access to my whiteboard isn't getting access to it. And are you ready to trust AI to like figure all of that out for you in a way that's good enough that really
Let's
simple
see.
hack attempt
I really like
get
this
through.
challenge.
So,
let's do it.
It could be a private whiteboard, Shane's whiteboard. You've got to put something sensitive into it.
Okay.
And then we'll see if we can hack that out.
My feelings won't fit.
That'll be fun. Okay. Well, Shane just that was an awesome weekly catch up.
Right. Sorry for taking so long. But...
We're halfway through our episode already, but Simon, I'd love to hear how your week was.
I think I can be really brief because although I've been really busy, the things that have come out are kind of quite small. So the first thing is, I think this week I've really kind of hit this. I need to just get more time. I need more time. So I've gone, right, I'm going to get up every day. I'm going to get up a couple of hours earlier, going to make a go of like starting work properly earlier, and then I'll get more time. And 4 out of 5 days I've managed it. So I'm getting up at 6, which, if anybody knows me, knows that I hate the morning, right? I struggle to get up for like 9. So this is a big, big thing. And I've actually loved it. It's been amazing because I feel like I've got so much done. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, now I get it. This is why people do this. They can get stuff done.
Yeah.
But
The
I
the
am
key is you can't go to bed at 1 a.m. anymore
no.
and still do that.
That's maybe a good thing as well, because then I'm not like in the evening, I'm properly tired and I'm like, okay, I need to go to bed now because I'm just
Yeah.
bashed. But yeah, it's been really good, and I do feel like I've been really productive, and I think it's shown because I've got a bunch of stuff done for one of my clients, and I managed to get loads of time on some native PHP stuff. So there's been a bunch of releases that have come out for that, and Laradev's stuff as well. So like all of the things firing this week, which has been great. Where
Yeah.
sometimes I can only do this one thing this week, and I haven't really got the time and energy to think about the other 2, 3, 4, 5 things. So it's been good.
Sweet. A little bit back into that circadian rhythm. All cylinders are firing, and
Yeah,
he's
for
off.
the most part.
Is the Hampire going to lose his nickname?
Yeah, no, that's probably going to come back. I can't keep this up forever.
There's always Friday and Saturday nights, right?
Yeah. What about you, Stephen? What's been going on?
Yeah, much the same for me. A little bit tired. The weekend was a lot. We had Ollie's third birthday party on Saturday. And so just the prep, hosting that, cleanup was a lot. So the start of this week was a little bit slower than usual. And it's been one of those weeks where I've been working my normal amount, but it unfortunately hasn't produced like the deliverables. It's been a lot of, I feel like, just spinning of the wheels and not really moving anywhere. And one of the biggest things contributing to that, oh, I like a lot of aspects of being a developer and programming, but email is not one of them. I freaking hate coding like nice marketing newsletter email HTML. It just feels like you are plopped back into, early
Wait,
2000s browsers, and it just sucks.
what? Why are
What
you?
what is the
Why
face
are you
for?
hand rolling marketing emails?
So it's not that I'm like hand rolling them. It's because for Backer Club, I have created this system that is almost like a email content management system where we can, Matt, who's non-technical and he knows a little bit of HTML, but not enough to like literally break out a text editor and write an email in HTML. I've created this thing where in our admin panel, he can basically just start filling in these blocks, these rows and a database table that each represent a type of content for the final newsletter. And so he can just tell it what we want. And then behind the scenes, I compile that into the little email components. And so from time to time, I have to go back, and whenever we want to change something or make something new, I have to create the essentially like a blade template to represent that component that he will then be able to, incorporate as a quote unquote newsletter item. And so that's why I'm hand rolling some of this HTML stuff. And there's like MJML and there's WYSIWYG editors for email. and all this stuff. But it's just whatever. It's dealing with tables, like literal HTML tables, and like so many, common styling features that you don't realize how much you take for granted nowadays with modern browsers. That Windows Outlook, that's still one of the most popular email clients in existence, like they have partial support for padding and margin still. I didn't know this, and maybe it's not right, but it makes sense in my mind that it would be correct. For the longest time, and I don't remember what version it was they mentioned, but very recently, but so for the longest time, Outlook used Word, Microsoft Word, as the rendering engine for emails in Outlook.
I'm just going to go throw up.
What the beep? Yeah, vomit up. Exactly. Like, what? I mean, I know, like, security and all of this stuff, but like, come on. No wonder we're still stuck using tables, and some things have to be declared in a CSS style tag with, actual selectors, and then other things have to be inline styling, and then you've got like wonky, you have to write a comment that says if MSO and blah blah. It's just like I love modern browsers. It just it gives me the appreciation for all of the like CSS and JavaScript and modern HTML that we get in browsers. And then whenever I have to go back and do this stuff with HTML, it sucks. And then like there's, another big element to this that's been a major area of concern for us for Backer Club recently and this week was analytics for emails. And pretty much everybody knows that knowing open rates, for example, like when somebody is actually opening an email these days, is virtually impossible. SES and lots of other places, they'll do the transparent pixel that gets loaded, but that's extremely flaky at best.
Yeah.
And then even stuff with click information. You would think click data would be relatively accurate and consistent because we use SES. And so with our configuration set, we have it take whatever href we have in our email, it wraps it around an SES, whatever it is, click something. And you would imagine that when Amazon handles that redirect and it's recording that and then sending us the feedback, that the numbers we would be seeing for clicks would just be fairly straightforward. It would be accurate. And yet you can take a link in an email and then use another kind of click tracking service. So say Bitly or TinyURL or one of those as just an example of an easy way to do this. So you make a short URL, you stick that into your email. AWS is going to wrap that to give it its own click information. And then, the Bitly will also give you a piece of information. And then for some of our specific cases, there's actually another system that we frequently use for affiliate stuff that also does click tracking. Every single one of these systems will tell you a different number. Like,
yeah, what's the margin of error there though?
For some of them, it's literally like 100% difference. So like double. One will say whatever, 100 clicks, and the next one will say 200. And it's just, okay, like what is the real number? Where
7. The real number is 7.
42. It's always 42. It's just, it's so frustrating. And it's really annoying too, because like we're trying to be more and more efficient with our email list. And so we're wanting to get into the realm of purging subscribers that haven't opened or clicked something, but then you can't really trust like that data. So that sort of throws out the ability to do that in a large way. And then we have other people that like we just sent out a campaign yesterday and we were looking at some statistics from the first few hours, and it's like some email addresses are showing 56 clicks in a newsletter that had like 20 links to possibly click on. And it's just
Rage
like, okay, well, I don't think it's a person. I think it's probably like a spam engine or some other piece of code that is right firing off a server request to see what's on the other end of that URL for whatever purpose. And so then that completely muddles your data. So
Yeah.
this is why I'm saying like my week has been, you know, kind of deep diving a lot of these things and just not really hardcore getting anywhere. But yeah, the HTML stuff is sort of one of those that it's like, you can just, if you take enough time, you can just get it to work good enough. But the click stuff, I just feel defeated because I don't know which numbers to trust and if we're able to make any sort of good business decisions based on that and all sorts of things. So it's aggravating. If I've got any listeners that have investigated this a ton, please let me know. I'd be happy to hire you for a couple of hours to help me break this down. I even just did some quick Google searching of like, has anybody done an analysis where they send email, the same thing through SES and doing what I'm describing, right? Just take and redirect it through a couple of locations, preferably with like one of those being a click tracker that is based on an actual browser page load that has to fire off JavaScript. So you're kind of segregating away from only server side normal like curl style requests that aren't executing any JavaScript to get like an even possibly more accurate number of like, okay, what is an actual human or very sophisticated bot versus a normal thing? And like, is there just a report, you know, that's like, okay, yeah, we sent these emails and like, this is what SES reported, this is what this reported, and this is what this reported. And
I think you just get into
kind of
territory.
get a feel for where things are.
Yeah. I think you just get into this territory of diminishing returns on that kind of stuff. Like, are the stats really that important from the email? Like, is it going to make a huge difference? Like, if it was accurate and you could cull, you know, with confidence a certain number of people from your mailing list, you might save a few bucks a month on the you know, whatever you pay to store the size
for
of the
a long
list or
time,
send
Simon,
emails.
it was really important to us because we, for a while, Backer Club operated on a cost per click business model for our advertisers. And so we were trying to record the clicks in these emails because that's where most of them were coming from. And so like it was really important because we were asking people to pay for them. And so having 100% error or just uncertainty, I mean, you're talking about literally either cutting your revenue in half or potentially double over, you know, asking clients to overpay. And so in that regard, it was a really big deal for us. And well, since it has become more and more clear that you can't really trust those values, we have moved away from that model. But it's just one example of, I guess, a situation where, yeah, the click information being accurate was important for us to have. But anyways, we don't have to go down that rabbit hole. I love how Shane is just over there like cranking on a project and like
I'm getting there.
we haven't heard a peep from him
in
20 minutes.
He's like, email. Nah.
he's making our Miro clone for us. All right. So yeah, that's been my week. A lot of wheel spinning. Let's move on to the thing I was really hoping we could deep dive a little bit in this episode. And that is our favorite interview questions for software engineers, web developers.
Oh wow, we're actually
Both
gonna
in-
like get our topic from
Get there?
last week that we said that
Yeah.
we were gonna do. We're actually gonna do it. Oh my goodness.
50 minutes into this episode, we're finally there. So I think that we could maybe break these down into two common categories. You sort of have behavioral questions and then very technical questions that are asking to either write code, look at code, or like deeply explain how you would implement something. So that's kind of my technical category. And then the behavioral side is just more of how they handle situations in the workplace regarding common development scenarios and stuff like that. Do you agree with that breakdown? Is there a third or more category you can think of that you would usually bring up in an interview that doesn't meet one of those categories? Simon?
No, I think those are about the right things to go after. Like when you boil it down, it should be really straightforward, because if it's not really straightforward, then it makes it challenging for lots of things. Like you're going to get variance in the way that people interpret what the question is about and for, like what's the purpose. And then you're also going to have a hard time trying to like compare across multiple candidates. So you want to keep things straightforward, consistent. Try not to overcomplicate it with lots and lots of stuff. So I think, personality essentially, and technical ability are kind of the key things you want to get out of the whole process, not necessarily just one interview. But I think it's doable. Yeah, we should talk about it. I'm intrigued to see what your thoughts are on it. I've got some.
Let's start with like maybe behavioral. Yeah, some behavioral questions. And Shane, are you with us, or are you wanting to continue on
a little both, maybe?
Firo, fake Miro, Famiro,
Bureau, bucket.
So, do you guys have any? Well, first of all, let's get a little bit of context here. Shane, in your experience as a developer, have you had to conduct many interviews? Kind of give us a feel for where you lie on the spectrum of being both an interviewer, but I guess also being interviewed.
Yeah, I've done some interviews.
Okay.
I think I'm sure I've conducted fewer than I've been the interviewee for. For sure. There's been several jobs that I've had that, we would, I mean, it's like my department or whatever is we're needing some help and we're bringing people in. And I find that more challenging, because it's like you have to create how do you really get inside someone's head enough to see if they're going to be a good fit? And I think over the years that I've developed, it's like the technical aspect you can usually discover pretty quickly. The personality, though, takes a bit more time to really figure out. And it's kind of hard to balance that too, depending on the size of your team. If your whole team is working in person in the office, if you're all collaborating online instead, work from home, remote, whatever, I think that all plays into it. Because if our whole team thinks that we all like the same sports team, for example, or the same music type, and we listen to the same music in the office, that's going to contribute to who we bring into the next role, right? And I've been in positions like that where we're all kind of metal rock heads, and we all listen to the music, and it's like, can you deal with this for 8 hours a day? Because we love it, it matters.
Right. Okay. And then Simon, can we get a little context on your side?
Yeah. So I've obviously been an interviewee plenty of times. So I've had a good share of really good questions and really bad questions. um, and then I've been an interviewer quite a bit as well. The probably the best example of that is when I was at LV. So I probably interviewed in my time there something close to 100 engineers, um,
Oh
which
wow. Okay.
is probably not that many really. But we went through these like spurts of hiring, so it would be like you've got to get 3 or 4 people to fill the spaces that we've got now, and yeah, just like having to move quickly with hiring and make decisions kind of rapidly so that you didn't. This was also at a time when developers were going like off the market within days, which is wild. They would sort of start
Right.
applying for roles and then they'd be snapped up very, very quickly. So it was very difficult, not just to find people, but then also like get them across the line. Um, So yeah, that's kind of the context for me.
Okay. And I mean, Simon, yeah. Do you just have any behavioral questions that were your favorites to ask when you were conducting an interview, or that you have been asked? Either one. Just
I do. I really liked some of the ones where I haven't got like a specific thing in mind, but it's sort of presenting a situation, and it might be less of a technical one, might be more of an interpersonal situation. Like a team member has reviewed a PR and they've said something that you don't like, or they've they've commented on the code style. What do you do? How do you
right.
handle it? Um, because
Handling
they're
conflict.
yeah, exactly. It's like this scenario that you maybe everybody's come across. They've maybe not given it too much thought, and then now you're being asked to express this, how you would handle this hypothetical situation, which, depending on the person, can be quite um, enlightening about the way that they think about these things. Some people try and second guess it a bit too much, and then they get themselves kind of tripping over what's the point of this exercise. Um, and it becomes a bit tricky. So I find, like Shane was saying, it takes a little bit longer to really find what a person is really like and how they're going to behave. And I think to that point, the best experience I've had of that is actually saying, bring somebody in, just say yes to them, and be clear that it's going to be on a short leash, effectively. They're going to be on a trial run for, it might be a couple of weeks. Um, and yeah, you're maybe not going to see everything that could happen, but you're going to see a lot more than just from, an hour, 2 hour interviews and some technical challenges. So that sort of almost like get them in as a contractor first so that you can date them a little bit and see what they're
Right.
like, with the clear prospect of like, yes, there is a role here, and you're going to get it. If this goes well, you're like going to get the role. um yeah, I think that
But
sets expectations well.
if you have 50 applicants, how do you drill down to the one or few that you want to give that short leash dating opportunity to?
Yeah, but you can't do it with all 50 for sure. um and that's where the other pieces come in. Like, you have to do the interviews still. You still have to spend like those few hours actually speaking to this person, maybe being in the same room as them, maybe having more than just, a couple of technical people doing the interview. Get some other members of the team, if your team's big enough, to to join and converse with them and bring some different perspectives in. Just trying to expose that individual to as much of the organization and not just the platform or the technology as you possibly can within the time that you've got. And then obviously they've got to pass the technical stuff as well. So you've got to have some reasonable technical challenge. We should talk about what that actually looks like, because I've got some thoughts on that. But
Okay.
Something that says, yes, definitely this person can do the job.
Okay. Shane, do you have any favorite behavioral questions that you reach for? And if not, or I'll just say after you've had a quick chance to say something, I do have several questions I have put together. So maybe it would be fun for me to say them. And then Simon, Shane, you guys can give me a yay or nay. I like that. I don't like that.
You're so organized, Stephen. Good job.
So before we get there, yeah, Shane, you got any?
So yes and no. I mean, there's some canned ones, right, that work. I'm kind of like, I can kind of read people. I did 10 years door-to-door experience sales, and I'm pretty quick at reading people. And so I know it's like, I don't know. I just kind of feel things out more than whatever. There's a funny one from Stephen Wright, and I'll get to that in a second. I think things like, how do you handle conflict? Say I came up to you and you turned some work in, and I just tore it apart and was like, this is wrong. How do you feel about that? Not that I ever would do that, but you're trying to get to like, what agitates you, and how do you handle that agitation, and how do you are you one to just quit and walk away, or are you gonna take when things, I mean, I've worked at several places. I'm up at till 2:00, 3:00 in the morning working on stuff, and it's like, I can't walk away. The whole thing would crumble. And you want to make sure that person can also handle the heat and be there with you. Stephen Wright walked into an interview, and the guy gave all these questions, and he's just sitting there reading a book the whole time. As the interviewee, he's reading a book, and the guy's like, are you even paying attention? He's like, you know what? Let me ask you a question. If you're in a vehicle driving the speed of light and you turn on your headlights, what happens? The guy said, I don't know. He's like, forget about it. I don't want to work for you.
So the requisite there is, the general theory of relativity in order to be a worthy
Absolutely.
company to work for. I like this. Okay. For any listeners that don't know the answer to that question, it's that the headlights light will move away from you at the speed of light still. Fun answer.
You've ruined it.
I'm sorry.
There could have been so
I just
many.
gave away the secret.
It's hypothetical, Stephen.
I don't. I would like to get a car that travels that fast.
Wouldn't that be nice? It would take infinite energy. So if you
would
get
be forever young, right?
Let us know. You would be. Well, not to your inertial frame.
No, only to
everyone else's. Yes,
yeah.
Perfect. Hey, somebody did a little bit of physics. Sweet. All right, guys. Let me blow through some of these questions. I think the technical ones will be where I'd really like to maybe spend a little bit more time. So let's run through these fast. I'll just get a quick yay nay from you guys, and we'll go from there. So these are from my personal experience plus just a little bit of research that I did. First one, what is something you recently learned about software engineering that you found interesting?
Can you repeat the question?
What is something you recently learned about software engineering that you found interesting?
Oh,
this freaking app here, Bolt.
The exercise here is not for you to answer the question, Shane. It's for you to let me know if you like that as a question.
Assess the question.
Let me ask.
Do you feel like it's insightful?
Let me see what AI thinks about this question.
Oh my god!
I'm just kidding.
While you're doing that, I'm not that keen on it. because it's very broad. So it's not specific enough in one thing. Like as an interviewer, I want to be asking about the things that mattered to my company, to the role specifically. Like that's so get down to that. If we imagine that the question was asked very specifically, I still don't like it because it sort of plays to this idea that people in tech are only in tech because they absolutely love tech and tech is all they do and think about. And people aren't like that. You know, there are people who do software who they have other interests, you know. It's like it's okay to not be 100% your life in this world. So, you know, it kind of sets this weird expectation that they will be on top of it. And I think people will read that and go, oh, yeah, 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 I know what's going on. And just pluck something out in like recent media that they've remembered. And it's like probably not that relevant, you know? So I think what it then leads to is a bias towards people who have got that kind of tech is my only thing and I really love what I do. And that's fine, but that might not be the right kind of person for the team.
Okay, Shane, thoughts?
I think it's okay as like a warm up question, but I wouldn't put too much stock into the
Yeah.
answer. I think like everybody, even interviewers, are generally a little. It can be a little. You're a little nervous up front, so I think it's an okay for a warm up question, but I wouldn't. I don't think it really matters what the answer to that is.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do think that would be a good question for like the very first interview. I actually put a little bit more stock in that one than I think either of you do. And the biggest reason for that is because I do think, okay, let me preface. I think it depends a little bit on the exact role you're hiring for. If you're talking about a more senior position versus a junior, that would weigh into my consideration here a significant amount. But I have this belief that continued learning is getting more and more important to be a good developer. And so, yeah, I feel like that question can just, by picking up what they choose to respond with and maybe a couple follow-up questions to see, to your point, Simon, is it something they just remembered from a Twitter post yesterday? Or was it something where they bought a course and truly went through it because they found it extra interesting? Would kind of let you know, okay, is this somebody that like doesn't really care too much about continuously learning their craft, or is it somebody that like just intrinsically does that? So anyways, that's my quick
I
take.
would say to that though, that question doesn't really get to that answer because you could have asked me something and I would refer to a Twitter post or something, even though I just took a course, right?
Well, I mean, if that's what you found interesting, then as long as you could kind of, and it was specifically something you learned about software engineering that you found interesting.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, my goal, at least I've never asked that one before, but if I were, my goal would be to really drill down. Like Shane, the start of this episode was a perfect example, right? You found this new tool, you found it interesting. It is somewhat, it's related to software engineering, not necessarily a new design pattern. Well, almost in a way it is, just not writing code, it's exercising code. But like, that'd be cool. And it's something that, I don't know, you could just drill down in that a little bit and kind of have this feel for, is this already coming on that spectrum? Let's keep moving, or we'll spend too much time on each of these. Next question: what does good code look like to you, Simon? Yay or nay?
Yeah, I like that one.
Okay, Shane.
Same.
Yeah, cool. I actually like that one quite a bit too because I think it will really help separate how experienced somebody is with code bases and knowing what is important for good code versus not.
I like the fact that it's open
Do you
ended.
guys? Sorry, really quickly, since we all liked it. Yeah, go ahead, Simon. Sorry.
Sorry, I was thinking like because it's open ended that it gives the person an opportunity to kind of go off on one on their own. Like if they're a conversational person, they could just start talking and they might not stop. Maybe that's a bad thing, but like it's not just it's this like list of things.
What are you trying to say there, Simon?
Don't you try and drag it out of me. I am not going to speak to you anymore unless you ask me very specific questions. Sorry.
All right. Let's next one. It's a little bit of a segue, kind of similar thing. To you, what's the difference between a good developer and a great developer? Yay or nay?
I think that's an okay question to ask. I think it kind of goes along with the good looking code kind of thing. You can get some deeper answers out of that. You also could get some lofty answers out of that. You could get some people like maybe not what they do, but what they would like to project that they do. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I stay up and work, I'll work 20 hours off the clock and I'll refactor my code offline and I'll like you can get some ideals that the developer doesn't necessarily partake in.
Okay. Simon, thoughts?
What does the answer what's the impact of their answer going to be? Like if they have a different opinion to the person doing the interview, is that going to lead to like a bad score? Or is it just going to be, okay, well, we have different opinions, but you're technically very good, so come and join the team. And oh, by the way, all of our developers are what you said are bad developers, or not so good developers. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. In some ways it could be good, but again, I think it probably needs to be a bit more specific. Like probably more along the lines of what makes a good senior engineer. If the role is for a senior, that kind of thing.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I'm with you guys. I actually think I sort of like that one, especially with it being a little bit more vague because, for example, I feel like you would have a good look into someone or two candidates if one answered that question in a very technical way, right? These are the types of implementation practices that a great developer does over a good one. And then if you had another candidate that thought about it much more as I put a lot of weight into being a great team player. I try to help coworkers in need as much as I can and foster, building up our entire department or team rather than just focusing on myself. Or I don't know, that could just be very insightful, and you could very easily segue into your follow-up questions that would kind of drill down into that a little bit more. My problem with some of the really specific ones when you're in a behavioral interview, trying to, for example, ask, how exactly do you handle conflict? It almost tees them up to answer it too well. But if you ask somebody a kind of tangential question like this, and they're like, oh, well, a great developer, one of my key elements is the ability to handle criticism constructively. They sort of answered another question you would really want them to answer, but genuinely, because you didn't prompt them for it. I don't know if I'm deep diving there too hard, but I have noticed that a little bit, that almost you can ask people some very common questions and they just come with these stock answers, right? And everybody will tell you that they can handle conflict and criticism super well and be a team member with good team spirit, but it's because they just have that stock answer ready to go. So it can be really interesting when they kind of give you the answer, but because you asked a slightly different question. This one's very similar. This is one I saw off of the internet. It says, suppose you're working at our company and your boss, Jon Snow, brought up an idea that you thought was particularly dumb or bad, but no one else said anything in the meeting. What would you do? Or another way to phrase that question is, tell me about a time you convinced your boss or a coworker to implement something in a way that was different from their original intention. Yay or nay?
I prefer the second option to it,
Yeah.
Okay. Me too. Me too.
but yes, it's a good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, that's good. I think the second one will how do you say this? It's yeah, again it kind of takes you away from like what you idealize and gives like what did you actually do.
Yeah.
It is hard sometimes to be confrontational for some people and how they handle like we could go down the wrong path for months and you knew this the whole time and didn't say anything, and so you're kind of liable for that.
Yeah.
And uh, how do you communicate effectively when you have a concern? It's a good thing to know about somebody.
Yeah. You could also probably see if they are a evidence-based person or a gut-based person
Mm.
and stuff like that. So cool.
I think if you went with the first option, the danger is that you are kind of setting it up like it's maybe a bit of a trap for them, and they might get distracted by the, oh, I might think bad of somebody else side of the question, and that's not actually the thing. It's more of like, how do you communicate that somebody's made a poor suggestion? You know, not
Yeah.
you think bad things about people when they make stupid decisions. So yeah, I
Okay.
try and keep it positive, basically.
Yeah. Give me a second here just so that we don't I have 5 other questions. Let me see if I can drill this down to some that I'm more interested in.
Well,
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Shane. But I do have the next one
no,
I'd like to
I was
ask.
going to say while we're waiting, Simon, would you like to sing us a song? But you're good. So
Ain't nobody loves me better.
nice.
Brilliant. Okay. Yeah, I feel like this would be a really fun one to ask. Tell me about a time you seriously messed up. Or similarly, tell me a time when something you were responsible for didn't go according to plan. Yay or nay?
Yay.
So I say yay too, but it's also like I have good answers for this. So I'm not sure if like I'm saying that this is really a good question for an interviewee, or if it's just like I'm okay accepting this answer and I can show you more of who I am if I was asked this in an interview. I do think like yeah, if there's someone that's prepared for that and they have had the experience, then that's probably good. But I feel a little biased.
I'd say I think that even a junior, if they've got a reasonably confident demeanor, you know, and a good interview technique, can have something to say for this, because, and they're probably even like more recently aware of this happening, so it would be fresh in their mind. What they might struggle with is like how to interpret the results of what happened, right? So I think you just have to adapt your expectations of the answer to the level of candidate. But um, yeah, I think even a junior can have some good examples of stuff that's gone wrong, because they're probably making loads of mistakes as a junior, you know. So I think this one's really good, honestly.
Yeah. I do think this one can. I probably bias it to asking for a senior role a little bit more than a junior, at least with the way that it's currently worded. But I think you could reveal a lot, and something that would be easy to get into from that question that isn't right on the surface is how their prior work experience handled things going wrong, right? Is it a situation, if it's a more junior dev or whatever, are they really used to having like the PR process or a CI/CD process, like constantly being this safety net that caught their mistakes before they hit production? Or are they like if that's relevant to your current company, or if you're a
Yeah.
company that whatever doesn't have as much of that, like how did they handle things hitting production that was wrong? So you could kind of quickly get into that, and I think that would have a lot of value. Shane, you looked like you were about to say something.
Well, I think to that point, with enough experience, and you want somebody that's got flaws in production, I think, because they felt that heat. You don't want, it's like that question, if you're in the army or something, and your sergeant is leading you into war, and he has survived 3 wars already and been shot 7 times. How much more likely are you to follow him into battle? I mean, he's been shot 7 times, so he's likely to get shot again, but also he's lived through all the, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's great, actually.
So
he knows a good medic.
What I was gonna say is like that kind of taps on the what's that?
He knows a good medic.
Okay. Oh, yeah. If you're the medic, then that's probably job security, right? Um, so in that, but it touches on the other like what's your greatest flaw? My greatest flaw is I care too much.
Right.
I had to throw the Office reference in there.
All right. Let me just quickly mention the other questions I have, but we'll not even talk about them. They're also pretty similar to what things we've already discussed. So my next one was, what are your favorite sources to learn new dev topics? What's your biggest weakness? So flaw, what Shane just said. Or I actually prefer to phrase that slightly differently and say, what aspect about yourself would you like to improve the most? It's a very similar question, but it's not tell me how you're not good. Instead, it's just trying to phrase it a little bit more
I
positively.
like that.
What's your number one hobby or interest that isn't related to software engineering? And then finally, tell me about a time you were asked to do something you had never done before. Which I do like that one because it, I think, applies to pretty much every developer in any role, unless they are doing very, very simple stuff. All right. Let's get into the technical ones. So, Simon, do you have a favorite technical question? And by technical, again, I'm thinking you are conducting an interview and performing a pair programming session, right? You're watching them write code, or you present a hypothetical and ask them via words how they would implement said requirement.
Yeah,
Do you have any favorites?
I do. My favorite is implement a login process. So authentication.
Do you
And
get
I
to use
almost
Laravel
basically leave it. Well, this is the thing. I was just going to say, I basically leave it at that and let people just go, because then they can pick whatever. There are some real basic fundamentals. And when we're talking about web auth, right? So it's going to be a form of some kind, some sort of interaction with the server. There may be some database discussion in there. There might be some talk of HTML, maybe JavaScript, maybe CSS, maybe Laravel, PHP, or some other backend language. Like there's the whole stack is involved in this thing. And then if they do all of the basic parts really well, and they've kind of figured out, I don't need to tell you, I put an input element here, and this is the placeholder, and this is the validation rule. They move on to like the deeper topics of like server side validation, security. How do I make sure this doesn't get punished by cross origin requests? How do I make sure it doesn't get abused by people who are trying to crack into people's accounts, and all of that kind of thing, and a lot more. And it basically can just balloon off into loads of different areas. So it's quite revealing of like where the person's mind goes, um, and what they focus on. Also, kind of gives you a flavor of maybe what they're interested in right now, what they feel most confident talking about right now. And then, if they leave lots of doors open, I can then go and ask loads of follow-up questions. Um, and I usually say, like, you can write it out, you can draw stuff, you could use the computer and use Google and you can search for things. It's not like a exam conditions thing. And I usually give them about an hour and I say, we're just going to talk through it. But, if you want to write code and stuff and you can show me things, then do that as well. But let's talk about this problem. How do you create an authentication?
Yeah, I like it. It's applicable to almost every single application. And like you said, it touches on a lot of aspects, yet the requirement, the feature, if you will, is something everybody is familiar with. So it's not like you're asking them to do some off the wall thing that requires a ton of context. Shane, what do you think?
I want to change my answer to that one.
Cheater.
Winner, winner, winner.
So I did have one that I liked, but it's not. I like this answer better. The one that I did have was, and I was asked this a couple times actually. Whiteboard a database architecture for, or just the way you would set up a database for an e-commerce platform.
Ugh. Holy cow.
The reason why I like Simon's answer better, though, is because you have a lot of the front end server knowledge required, and not just like how you would think through just a database, right? Which is I mean, that's a big thing, right? You can really see how somebody's thinking about how they would handle things with that. But I like Simon's answer better for a full stack developer, at least.
Yeah, I was going to say it maybe is dependent upon the exact role, but I think even with that, you can like turn a lot of, because it does touch on the full stack, you can just go, okay, this is for a database engineer's role. Do they exist anymore? I don't know, but basically you could just dive deep in that one topic of that same thing. And that's quite nice from my point of view. And I've used that a lot. And it really does weed through people who know what they're talking about and people who really don't, even though on paper they look great. And, because it's not test conditions and we're just having a conversation. And I usually do it later into the interview. So it's not like the first thing you get blasted with. It's like we've settled, you're calm. And now we're going to talk about something technical, and I ease them into it. So it's not like nerves and heart rate rocket right back up, which can skew a lot of that. So yeah, I've been really fond of that, and it's worked really well for me.
Okay. Do we have any others that you would like to pull from your experience? Otherwise, I can do the same again and present a few that I've personally or looked up and get your yay or nay.
I mean, I just have funny stories coming to mind of interviews that I've botched horribly. Like an infinite loop in JavaScript at NerdWallet. I think it was Lending Tree or whatever. And it just crashed the browser in front of like 3 senior developers. I didn't get the job. It was funny.
That is funny. Simon, do you have any others besides the login that you could reach for?
No, not really. But I think it's more of like a word of caution. I wouldn't go for very intense like whiteboard challenges and algorithm stuff. These kind of typical technical things, which
LeetCode problems.
Yeah, exactly. Just not because I don't like them or I'm not good at them. Definitely, that is true. But mainly because I think they put people on the back foot. If they haven't prepped for it, then they're going to struggle, even if they're good enough to do the job. And if they have prepped for it, then they're going to fly through it, and they might not be good enough to do the job. They just know how to solve the challenge. So I think you have to really choose carefully what you're testing for, and know that the result leads you towards the answer that you want. If you're not sure, don't use that challenge. It's not the right one for you. So yeah, just word of caution, I think, generally around that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I actually had a very recent experience with essentially that that scenario. So
Sorry to hear that.
I had to do some raw PHP coding outside of a normal text editor. So like no IntelliSense. I did not have Laravel. So like all of the collection, array, string helpers, that's what I have floating up here. Right. I don't remember. Anyways, it was a little just made me feel kind of stupid because I was like, holy cow. I don't remember how to sort an array by its values, maintaining the keys without
Did that
using
team only
some
use
helpers.
like raw PHP, and they
No,
only do it from memory?
no. It was just, I think, like
Then
a
it's the wrong
little bit
test.
of a gatekeeping.
I would
Yeah,
not. I would not. I would say, nope, you got the wrong guy. See ya.
yeah. Bye.
Sorry. There's other jobs out there, right? Like, I don't know. Number one, to Simon's point, it should mimic what the job is. Number one. Number
Yeah.
two, and I said this before on the show, I'm not a PHP developer. I'm a Laravel developer. I
Yeah.
only look for Laravel jobs.
Yeah.
And don't test my PHP. I'll show
Yeah.
you Laravel.
Yeah. To their defense, they made it clear before I started that this is, something they have you do. And then if you are selected to continue, the real technical challenge is sign an NDA, you get access to their repository, and you actually try to work through a ticket. And so this was more of a simple gatekeeper where it's like, okay, I have 1 hour to weed out the people that don't really know basic programming concepts, right? Like,
But it's not that.
outside of a collection, do you know how to? I don't know. It was really simple stuff. It was really simple requirements. It was just the fact that I didn't have like Laravel in my IDE to just make the process so much faster. That was like the bigger holdup. All right, what's up? You had a follow up there, Simon.
It irritates me so much because it's like actually what they're testing is your memory, and that's that's not relevant for the job. It's not relevant for even the next stage of doing the like getting access to the repo and messing with their real code. Like if they're worried that you're going to get access to their repo and do something, then like surely they'd want you to be like a dumb person so that you don't, because then they'd actually spot like, oh, this person doesn't know what they're doing, and so they can't damage our stuff or make use of it.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just weird to me.
Let me get your yay or nay on a couple of these, and then we'll wrap up, guys. So the first one, this is one I would really like to set up for myself, but I don't have at the moment. So create a sample repository that you could give to the interviewee, the candidate, that contains a purposeful bug, and then start the interview by simply telling them the bug as it would be described by a user of the application. So not a technical description of the bug, but like, hey, we just got a support ticket from a customer that says, I clicked this button. This is what happened. You get no screenshot. You get, you don't get anything like that. So anyways, describe the bug, how a customer would in a support ticket, and then ask the candidate to solve the problem. Bonus points are to ask them to explain to their other dev coworkers what the problem was and how it was solved. And then additionally, if there's enough time, you could kind of set up this bug so that they could actually kind of like solve it and extend it by improving the app in some way while they're solving it. So what do you guys think? Have you ever even seen something like that? Yeah.
I'm not a fan because
Oh, okay. Why?
yeah, first of all, it takes a lot of time to prep something like this and properly, to make it like it's not super easy, but it's also not super hard. And if you were really thinking about it, like, is this what it really like in the job to do this? Then it's probably that's not everybody's role. Like, not everybody's going to do triage of bugs. So I do think it's the nice thing about it is it gets you to see how somebody goes about problem solving, which is
Mm-hmm.
which you can do in lots of other ways, like even the login problem is a problem solving, but this is like a real problem, like a bug, rather than just coming up with a feature or something like that. So, um, but it's like repeatable. So once you've invested all the time in getting this rigged up so that you can challenge somebody with it, you're probably not going to want to change it too much, which means eventually, and if enough people get wind of what you're doing, everyone will know how to do it and it won't be a challenge anymore. So it's not great. Um, the the other thing about it is that it takes a lot of stuff in isolation that you don't normally have in isolation. Like, you would have access to exception reports, logs, and all of these other things, which maybe if you haven't thought this challenge through enough, you you might not have put in place, and so it's just not representative of reality. I think it's got to be somewhat representative of reality for it to make sense.
Okay. Shane?
I agree with those points. And I think that I think what you're trying to get at here is how do you find a bug and resolve it and refactor the code so that it's future proof, or it's like you said, general log handling or exception handling with logs, or so you can see these things, or using like night watch, right? So you can get alerts when things happen. I think that if it was I think the problem with that to me is the developer, you're giving them either a single script or a whole project. They don't know. And for me, if I put something together, if I've been working on it for several months and someone's like, hey, when I click that button, I'll
Mm-hmm.
probably know right away what it is. So
Yeah.
like if I had the project, the repo, and a half an hour to solve it and come back to you, I would have AI skim the thing and tell me what's wrong with it, and it'd probably find a bunch of other bugs. But that's also not telling you that I know how to solve problems the way that you're saying to. Which AI will help me solve problems, and it is a good tool to lean into for a lot of things like that. So I think that what you're getting at is admirable. I don't think the way you're doing it with that question is the right way.
Okay. Do you have any ideas on a better way?
Well, yeah. I mean, you can give them like a weekend project or something like that, where I think that if they're solving it's not just finding a bug. It would be something different. It's not find a bug with some script I just whipped up here with a bug in it and see how you solve it. Um, there was, and I think you and I both did this, Mr. Fox, for another job. They gave us like a weekend project of create a pizza tracker,
Mm-hmm.
if you remember that.
Mm-hmm.
So some sort of like back end that when you change the status of this order, the front end would mimic that and make it look nice. It was actually a bit more work than what you would initially think to get all that stuff working. Um, but you can really see inside someone's mind. You'll have a thousand developers. You'll have 900 different solutions for that. There's a lot of different ways to go about that. Um, so that's probably some direction I would lean more towards, because they're going to find bugs along the way. You can ask them, well, how did you solve this specific part? Why did you reach for that tool? Had you considered these other tools instead? And I think you're going to get the answer you're really looking for in a better way.
Okay. Okay. I can see that. Maybe, yeah, I think maybe the takeaway there is the repository, the app, and the quote unquote bug would need to be carefully thought out. And so, like, one that I had in mind for this would be a scenario where you could have a simple, imagine a probably admin style page with a table that with a whole bunch of records. And whenever you load that page, it takes way too long to load than what it should, or than what the customer wants, right? It takes 5 seconds to load that. Figure out what's wrong and then make it faster. And there are lots of ways you could potentially go about doing that, right?
Yeah.
You could immediately see, okay, is it a pagination problem? Is there an N+1 problem? Am I loading in tons of like extra eager loaded resources that don't need to be there? Am I doing some really complicated like logic to all of these records on the PHP side of things that don't need to be there? Do I need to be processing this in the background asynchronously
There's
and
way
then
more than
presenting
this.
it, like in a more cached state to the client? So that's more of where I guess I was thinking of such a question would go in this scenario. So
Well,
not literally like, hey, this, I don't know, the color is wrong, right? It's
okay,
like
so
it's a little bit more, sorry, go ahead, Shane.
well, that could be like there's a million other things. I think that's maybe a bit of a better question because you can see more of the things that they think of. Because the things that you just said, I would thought of, but also, what if there's unminified JavaScript? What if the images are all 3,000 by 3,000? What if the
Yeah.
server is in UK and I'm in California? Like there's so many other things. What if there's nothing's being cached? What if you're going through a bunch of stuff in the network that you can't even see on the page, like everything else is fine, like there's so many other things to that. I think that's probably better, and they don't even have to fix the problem, but if they should be able to just ask you those questions up front. Where's the server, right?
Yeah.
Where are these images coming from? Where, depends on the page, but
Yeah.
and I wouldn't even say like I wouldn't even set it up to like find the bug and fix it. I would say what answers do you need to be able to start addressing this?
Yes, yes, yes. That's exactly. I almost think you could learn plenty from what questions they ask versus them actually finding the issue,
Yeah.
especially if you're trying to constrain this to an hour. Okay. I like it. Let me just breeze through these last three and then we'll be all done. I can already think you guys probably won't like this one or the next, but how would you build a URL shortener app that is meant to handle 1 billion requests a day? This would obviously be for a very like senior role, somebody that's dealing with infrastructure, stuff like that. So I would not be asking a fresh out of school or, fresh off of Larry
What
Cass's
do you mean?
university
How
person.
would you build it?
That's a good question to start as the interviewee. Yep. What else?
No, I'm asking you. Like, what do you mean when you ask them this question? What do you mean by, you know, like,
Okay.
like I don't. I think that's too general.
Okay. Yeah. I think this is where you could try to steer the conversation a little bit depending on the exact role the company was trying to fill. If you're trying to have somebody that is, like infrastructure and stuff, maybe you would steer them down more of a path of like, describe to me the hosting infrastructure and data layers that would need to be in place to pull this off versus, I don't know, don't really know exactly how front end specifically would play into this question, but you can maybe see where I'm trying to get at. But I think
Yeah.
generally the idea is just sort of whiteboard both the hosting infrastructure that you feel like would need to be in place, and then even some specifics of how you would handle like generating and storing the routes, determining what the redirects need to be, handling that redirect for the client, you could kind of almost, the questions that the interviewee asks and how drilled down they get is the really large indicator of how much they understand more complex scenarios like this in the web world over, like, I have experience doing a to-do app for 3 people.
I think it's
What do you think?
it's a good question to ask. I'll put it that way. I think you can get into a lot of things with that. So I'd leave that there for now.
Simon?
Yeah, I kind of like it. I think it has to, again, be framed by reality. Like, there's no point asking a question about uh, that kind of high tier of performance considerations when you're building like an invoicing app that's only
Right.
used by 1,000 customers. Like, that is a gatekeeping question then. And why do you want that tier of developer in your company when you're never going to get to
Exactly.
that scale? Like, you're just not. So, choose the setup appropriately. But if there are specific infrastructure problems at the scale that you're at, that you think that this person should be capable of like understanding and solving, then yeah, it's a good question.
Okay. I'm not that big of a fan of it. I think it is too. That's like, yeah, if I'm interviewing for an L4 position at Google, I could expect that sort of question because it's the job. But for the scope of this particular our experiences as a web dev, it's probably not something that you would really handle too often. I do like this next one though. That's along the same lines, but I think more relevant to more Laravel jobs. How would you build an email newsletter package that can send a newsletter campaign to 1 million subscribers? That's difficult to even word. I struggled to like how to phrase all of that into one
For the
sentence.
audio
But
for the audio only people, I'm shaking my head.
yeah, Shane, why is
No
that?
way.
Yeah.
Because that could be handled by some service that I just interface with. I don't need to know about that. Why do I need to?
I
Okay,
think that's
but
kind of
like,
an interesting, like, how the interviewee handles the question, because that tells
right,
you a lot about like their history and their experience with this kind of problem. Like, if you were saying, like, you could then go in and say, actually, we don't want the cost of the third or the risk of the third party. We know that building this ourselves, investing the time to build this ourselves is the right call for our business. So we're going to do it. So you've got to build it, and then you're all on the same page.
yeah,
And it's not necessarily right or wrong, the answer that they've given there in the first question that they've asked, because it just leads you down towards the detail in a good way.
okay, yeah, I like that one. I maybe like him more than others because it's the problem I solve. But
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking when you said
so
it.
I think it's the same as the previous one, but it's like I was saying, like, choose the setup that's appropriate to your business. And I think what you've hit on there, Stephen, is that this one is closer to home for you personally right
right,
now. So you
exactly,
feel you understand that a bit better, because it's exactly what you're trying to deal with. And that's
yeah,
exactly it. I think if it's some abstract thing that your team or your business doesn't have anything to do with, it's going to be really hard to like qualify or disqualify candidates on that basis.
That's
Somebody
true.
might come with a really good answer for that question and be technically sound, and you go, "Oh no, I don't think they were right." And it's like, so you've
right,
disqualified somebody who's the perfect fit,
totally,
because you just don't know what you're talking about.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, so very specific, right? That was my own personal one based off of seeing the URL shortener idea on Reddit and it having a lot of upvotes. And I was like, oh, well, I could kind of relate that to a problem I do solve.
Yeah.
And, but I do kind of like that one because it's sort of one of those questions, and specifically at the 1 million subscriber requirement, that would really let you know, is this a Laravel developer that, one, understands queuing and asynchronous jobs, but have they done it to a point where you're probably not literally just like dumping
Mm.
this onto the queue and then calling it a day, right? You've hit a level where in a lot of scenarios, you need to be solving this in multiple phases to not spend 10 grand a month on a Redis cluster. So it could be very insightful and somebody that, and again, this is much more of a senior, I think, role type question, but yeah, does somebody stay very high level and kind of at the surface, or can they really drill down and talk about all sorts of stuff? And I mean, maybe even it would be interesting if people bring up other concerns like, okay, and then for this element, I need to be thinking about double opt-in, how do unsubscribes work? Are we segmenting lists? I don't know, just get into almost more product questions than like, this is how I write up a job. So
you're getting into the territory of like, how generally experienced is this person in like building digital products?
Yeah.
You know, have they done this before or not? And the people who have done it before are going to just be better at that generally than people who haven't. You know, if somebody's just been a jobbing developer who just handles tickets and they've never really had to think about systems and real world problems, and you know, they just go, oh, I know where the code is for this problem or this challenge, and I just go and edit that and create a PR and I'm done. It's going to be like way out of their depth. So yeah.
Okay, but I think
just use MailChimp.
Just way too expensive, Shane. Way too expensive.
God, not my problem.
Do you know how much a million contact list in MailChimp cost you a month? You don't want to know.
$400 billion.
Intuit has to make their money somehow. We don't pay enough for QuickBooks, so they got to make it up somewhere. Ha, 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 ha. Sarcasm over. I think the key takeaway there, which we kind of unanimously arrived at on multiple ways, is that both the technical and behavioral questions need to be as closely related to the needs of the company and the role as humanly possible. And these sort of very general blanket questions in a lot of scenarios are not necessarily bad. They're just not truly helpful. They could very clearly maybe tell you something you desperately do not want to hire, but not a person you would really want to hire.
Yeah.
Do we agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. And going back to some of my own experience with having to do that quickly, you know, and making mistakes. I'll be honest, I've made mistakes in having to make decisions quickly based on some of that stuff. You need really stronger signals. We were talking about that before. Like you need to go for the questions that are going to be giving you the strongest signal in the shortest amount of time, especially if time is a concern. The one other thing that I wanted to add in general, if I can, just whilst I've got the mic, is I think this is difficult depending on the interviewer technique, but I really like it when it's less of a like straight fire Q&A and more of a discussion, and it can sometimes very naturally become a good discussion. You can get on with the interviewer and it flows really nicely. But if they just stick rigidly to a list of questions that they've got to get through, it just becomes like very staccato and it's not very fun. And that can then affect like the mood and the perceptions of both sides. So it's better if you can get it flowing, I think. You can tell more about each other much more quickly.
100%.
That too goes into, and this may be a topic for another discussion, but the tier of who conducts the interviews. Is it some upper management that's never going to even work with this person, maybe initially, but then does that candidate that he qualifies get handed off to the people that he's actually going to work with to see the vibe check, basically? There's a lot of ways to structure that too.
Yeah. Great stuff. Okay, guys. 2 final things, and then we'll be wrapping up. The first one, we will get to this in the next episode, but we had a comment from fan of the show, Tendai, said in a recent YouTube comment, great episode, team. He was referring to episode 6. Really learned a lot in this episode. It sounds like you guys are business people and developers at the same time. How did you get to this? So something we'll think about a little bit, and then I think we've gotten a little too late in this particular episode to jump into there. So hold out for episode 8 tonight, and we will get back to you on that. And then Shane, how's our fake Miro?
I took a pause on it. It's going pretty good. You do need some like WebSockets interactions. I tried reaching for Pusher. Pusher requires backend for private channels, which you need for this. And so with WebSocket.io, that would work, but I need to spin that up on a separate server someplace and then provide the URL back to the app. So I took a break to set that stuff up.
Cool. Episode 8, we'll have a check-in.
We'll have a check-in. We'll have a check-in next week. It shouldn't take very long.
Sweet.
But I'm excited. So the riddle we started the show with, you ready?
Let's hear it.
I'm the library that you can't see. Ask me anything. I'll fetch it for free. What am I?
Google.
A search engine. Very good.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Wikipedia, bro. Yeah, even more apt a library. I like it. All right,
so,
Shane.
We good?
Do our outro, buddy. Yeah.
All right. If you liked this show, chances are someone that you know might also like it. Or like Tendai, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, feel free to write in on YouTube or email. We're all over the place. You probably have already seen us in Blue Sky and Twitter and all that too. So feel free to ask us anything. We love to bring your ideas, thoughts, suggestions onto the show and address them if they're good. If they're not good, just stay home, you know. But no, please share us, like us, follow us, send us out into the interwebs. The more people collaborating, the better we all are, I believe. So we'll see you guys next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.